Hello, welcome. It's Tuesday. As you probably know, I am here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. my time, which is Hawaii time, and 7 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendar if you want to come and hang out and do a little talking about voice and singing and do a little live coaching and stuff. I'm here every week. Hello, how are you? I always like to know what you are wondering about the voice, and hopefully I can answer from my perspective. And if you have any questions, I will hopefully be able to answer them. And you can always ask about me and my journey as a singer and vocal coach, and other specific things. So feel free to ask any questions at any time in the chat. And I'm here. So the thing that's coming up for me to talk about today was a conversation that I had with some singers yesterday, and it was mostly about breath and breath support, as we like to call it. Some people like to call it. I don't like to call it breath support because it feels very stiff and overly firm and kind of constricted. Like the sound of the word support just brings in a little bit of a tight feeling, into my body. Like if I say to myself, where's your breath support, automatically my body wants to go right, and that's not really what we want. So really what I like to talk about is airflow. In most situations, it's an airflow issue. If you're talking about needing more breath support, it's an airflow issue, and there's many different parts of that. So could be that you don't have enough air in the system, although it's most of the time not that. 90% of the time, in my experience, it's not an actual amount of air issue. It's how you're using the air in your body, because we are very good at breathing. Let's be honest, you've been doing it for the entire time you've been alive. So your body knows how to do that. It's just changing our perception of how to breathe when we're singing. So when we're breathing for singing, a lot of times the default can be for some people like, oh, I got to take in way more air because I have to sing this really long note, and so I have to really fill up 100%. But that is not always the case, and sometimes it can actually be a detriment, because the first thing that most people do when I tell them to take a deep breath, take more air, and they go, all right, and you can see my neck tightening, my shoulders tightening, my whole top of my torso is tightening. So what we want to think about instead is airflow. And in order to do that, I don't want you to think about taking in a whole lot of extra air. I want you just to think about sending the air that you are taking in down. And so relax. If you want to sit here with me and do this, you can sit up nice and tall so your abs are holding yourself up. See if you can put one hand on your low belly and really release those low abdominal muscles. So for some of us, we hold in a whole lot right there, especially we're sucking in our belly all the time. Doesn't matter who you are, that's what society has trained us to believe is necessary, that we have to have a flat belly. So see if you can just let that out for a second. Good. And now on your inhale, you're going to let it expand. I know it's the counterintuitive way. Usually we think inhale, abs come in. That's like our thinking mind. That's what we have to do, like hug the abs in so the lungs can expand up here, but that's not the case. We want to do the opposite. So you're going to inhale, let those low belly muscles relax so the belly can actually expand. Because when the belly expands, what's happening is you're not actually breathing into your belly, you're breathing into your lungs, but your organs are moving out of the way so that the diaphragm can come down involuntarily, by the way, and then the lungs can come down even further with it. So what you're allowing is filling up your lungs from all the way from the bottom, instead of the very shallow breathing that we tend to do very often. So what we want to think about is release. And that's usually what I say when I'm teaching this for the first time, is just release the low abs on your inhale. Release those belly muscles, expand. And then on your exhale, it's again a release. You're releasing that expansion. You're releasing the air from you. You're not pushing the air out. You're not going, it just feels way too much, too tight. So you're just releasing on your inhale, releasing those low belly muscles, and then releasing on your exhale. So everything becomes more loose, more allowy, more flowy, less tension overall everywhere except for your low abs when you're singing, because those are the big muscles that can handle it. Those are the big muscles that we want to be your gas pedal, not these muscles. These muscles are tiny and very easily bent. And so I don't mean bent permanently. I mean, like, I think about it like a steering wheel. This is your steering wheel. This is the gas pedal. This is the steering wheel. So if you're trying to make big movements and push a note out and you're defaulting from here, you're making a big movement with the steering wheel, you're going to go off the road, right? But if you make a big, strong movement with your gas pedal, you're just going to slowly accelerate. And that's kind of what we want. So underneath is your gas pedal. Everything underneath the bottom rib is really what's going to help you with this breath support idea. And it's going to help you with the compression that you need. So taking this moment to release those abdominal muscles is going to give them somewhere to go when you need them for singing. So I don't mean like do a crunch when you're singing, because that's even more tightness. But if you think about just sending that air down, and then when you're singing, when you're exhaling, send the air down again. You're just sending energy down so that those muscles down there can be the ones that are working for you. Another way to think about this is like your bathroom muscles. I know it's kind of weird to think about, but like if you don't have to go to the bathroom right now, just think about sending energy down, and that's what's going to help you use your lungs in a better way. And so we can find a way that is way more efficient with less overthinking. And hey, Mike or Heather, whoever this is, welcome. Talking about breath support and how we don't want breath support, we want loose airflow. And so what I want you to think about when you're singing is down, just down, right? And so when you're talking about longer notes that you're trying to hold and keep that tone really steady the whole time, we don't want to just push all the air out, because that's sometimes our default. We want to go ha, and then we end up at the end of our breath and we end up pushing really hard from here. So what I want you to think about instead is sending that energy down. If you're singing a long note, you're going to take that low belly muscle and relax it on your inhale. And then on your exhale, and as you're sending down, your abs are slowly contracting and not quickly contracting like in that last example. So they're slowly contracting, they're compressing your lungs in the perfect amount. It's just a little bit. And these muscles are free to do what they want to do, because this is what is controlling your tone. And so we want to leave this alone, right? We're just supporting the steering wheel like this. So let's try it right now. Nice, easy down thinking on your inhale, down thinking on your exhale. And if you're sitting and you need a little extra reminder for your body, you can press your feet into the ground. You can, if you don't have the capacity to do that, you can press your arms into the desk or the table or the couch, wherever you are. So let's take a nice big belly breath, and then we'll do a nice long note. Okay, ready? Doesn't matter what you do. Hopefully you were able to sing a little longer than you may have before. That pressing the feet into the ground trick, and if you're standing, bending your knees, my favorite magic trick ever. It really is amazing what it does for your breath support, your airflow, your compression, your everything, because your body has a mind of its own sometimes. Like that's what we call habits, right? And so thinking about singing is something that we may have a lot of habits around, and that may lead to not sending the air in the right place, taking really shallow breaths, which leads to pushing from here. And these vocal muscles are not where we want to control the airflow from or the tone from. These are to control the pitch. So yeah, if you just think about down, it can be really helpful. That's kind of one of my favorite ways to think about the breath, because it's seemingly super simple and easy. This learning how to use your own voice thing is less about knowing exactly what muscles to move, like, because our brain doesn't really connect to individual muscles very well. It knows movement and it knows purpose and it knows direction. So if you think about sending that energy down or sending the note out in front of you at a certain distance, like, your brain's going to connect to that. Like, and that's the other part of this airflow thing, is placement, is how far we're sending that sound outside of you. So if you want to think about sending the sound to somebody who's 6 inches in front of you, like a computer screen or something, you don't have to do very much, right? I can be right here, I can be very quiet, and you can still probably hear me. But if I want to talk to somebody across the street, they would not be able to hear me. So I'd have to engage my body's innate knowledge on how to do that. And I'm not even thinking about it. Hey you! Guess what my body just did without me even thinking about it? It took that low belly breath. My low abs relaxed. I breathed down lower. My diaphragm naturally went down, breathed into the lower half of my lungs, because my body knows that it needs to do that to get sound out further. And my cords closed stronger, had more volume automatically, had really good airflow, because your body knows how to make that sound go to a certain distance, certain volume, certain brightness, certain tone. So a lot of this stuff is unlearning habits that we have gotten into around singing, and it's not your fault. Like, habit building is a really sometimes passive thing. Things just happen over many years, especially if you're an adult, right? So if you ever tried to break a habit, it also takes a lot of time and commitment every single day to change how your body thinks of this stuff. So if I leave you with nothing else today, just think about release in whatever that way that means to you, because 95% of the people that come into my studio are holding way too much tension, and they're not letting themselves release. They're not letting the muscles do their full movement. They're not allowing themselves to let out a loud sound. They're not releasing fully. They're holding back because they're worried about the sound coming out right. And the unfortunate thing is, the sound is never going to be what you want it to be if you're holding it back. It's just the way this instrument works. You have to allow, you have to release more than is probably comfortable for you right now, which is why we do this nervous system training, we do this mindset training, because sometimes we want to release, but our mind or our body is not allowing us to. And that is a block that a lot of singers come up against. And so we then start talking about, okay, what voices in your head keeping you afraid of making imperfect noise right now? And that's a voice I call the gremlin. So if you can, identify what that voice is saying, what your gremlin's name is, what it looks like. You can do this right now. Write it down on a piece of paper, or comment if you want to, if you've done this work with me before. What's your gremlin's name? What does it look like? Is it an animal? Is it a blob? Is it a ball of energy? What is its favorite catchphrase? Mine is, oh, you're doing it wrong. Nope, you're doing it wrong. It's not right. It's not going to work out. So I end up fighting against it in order to reach high notes, in order to get long notes to be the consistency I want them to do. And that fighting translates, even before I have any control over it, because my nervous system is one step ahead of me, translates to tightness, 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 tightness. So a lot of this stuff has a lot of different layers, as you know, as you're a layered human being. It's not just about learning the technique. It's learning the technique and knowing what the possible roadblocks are. And most of the time, for a lot of us, once we learn a little bit of ear training, once we learn a little bit of muscle memory, the blocks that are still there after that are in here and the nervous system. It's because there's something that we are afraid of happening if we fully release and fully allow our voice to be what it is, which can be loud, can be soft, can be high, can be low. Sometimes we just don't allow it to be what it is because somebody in our past told us, like, oh, you have a really shrill voice, you should talk lower. And so then we overcompensate for our entire adult lives, and then we end up with restriction. Go figure, right? So it's really important to start thinking about how you show up for your voice against those voices. But also, we don't want to work against them. We want to notice them and be able to separate from them. Because this technique stuff, learning how to send your energy down, engage those low abs, if there's a little bit of extra fear, a little bit of extra, fight or flight response happening, your nervous system's not going to let those muscles relax completely. You're going to be fighting against your body to do something that you know how to do. But if you step up in front of 1,000 people, all of a sudden, your nervous system's going to be like, we are not letting go for anything, because that is vulnerability and that could leave me in danger. Are you starting to see how this can lead to issues over time? So this is the thing that they don't teach in like university performance degrees. They don't teach how to relate to your body in different nervous system states, in different times when you have this very strong mental pathway that is telling you that you're doing everything wrong. And your teacher's sitting there like, just do it. And you're like, I literally cannot. I cannot release this muscle. So this is why we do the work that we do. And sometimes it can be as easy as just showing your body that you can do this. You can show up in an imperfect way in a different situation than singing, because singing holds so much weight for so many of us that it's almost impossible sometimes to untie all of this from your singing voice. And so I can show somebody to do something in a speaky voice, and then all of a sudden we get a little more musical and their brain switches to singing mode and they go, tighten up. Singing's got to be pretty. Singing's got to be perfect. Singing's got to be better. It's got to be this certain way, because this is how I've related to singing my whole life. So over time, we start to try and hold that space that we held in the speaky, noise-makey, charactery voice region, and we bring that into the music. And over time, your nervous system starts to disarm a little bit, because it's used to doing this thing and no harm was caused. So we start to take one step out of our comfort zone, and then we acclimate. And then we take another step out of your comfort zone, and then we acclimate. So then it becomes not a big thing anymore. And so you can start to step on stage in front of people and be able to release those low abs and have a nice airflow. Whereas a couple months before, maybe you were really struggling with that. Maybe you felt like you were out of breath the whole time. It's our body does crazy things when we're nervous, and it's not your fault. It doesn't mean you're a worse singer or a performer or a human. It just means that that's your deal. That's your hardware that you have been built with. So we can't get rid of it fully, but we can train it to be less on guard and less heightened when these situations happen. So hopefully this makes sense. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Did any of this feel like you've experienced it before? anything that is relatable. I have a bunch of students working with this right now, this allowing themselves to show up fully in their full voice. And that's most of the time. Like, we're all dealing with that. I'm dealing with that sometimes, but in the breaths particularly. And it's really interesting to watch them go into these spaces with me and in front of other students, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves singing louder, singing with less tension, with more ease. It feels like it's nothing. And even some vibrato comes in because you're that loose, and it's so wonderful. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know I could sound like that. Just because they've been continuing to take steps outside of their comfort zone, little bit by little bit, and continuing to kick butt, basically. Kick their own butt, kinda. Kick their gremlin's butt, really, is what we want. So we work with all these things, but sometimes it's necessary to envision kicking your gremlin's butt in order to really separate from it. If you're a love your gremlin person, I'm all for it, but sometimes it comes back real strong, and I feel like I need to just slap him to oblivion, because otherwise he just hangs out, comes back every 2 seconds, you know? So whatever you need to do to release from that, to separate from that voice that's telling you everything you do is not worth it, not good enough. You need to try harder. You need to bear down more. You need to, that's what's probably stopping you from getting the sound that you want, theoretically. Definitely holding back at times and not releasing my full voice, because I've been told in the past that my speaking voice is too loud sometimes. Interesting. Yeah, that's a very real thing, especially for female identifying people. We have been told for centuries that we need to be quiet, and we need to not have opinions, and to not be whiny, and to not be in your face, and not get too excited about something and talk too loud, because that's just offensive, right? So, yeah, so we tend to really dive into those habits, not of your own accord. You know, just one person saying that might be enough to make you hold back and be self-conscious about your voice because it was too loud for one person, even though somebody else might be sitting there going, oh my God, I love how she talks, because it makes me excited too about whatever she's talking about, or it makes me feel like I'm okay to talk loud and be my full self as well. So yeah, man, it's real. It's very real. So see if you can, number one, start to take belly breaths in the middle of your speech, and not just when you're singing. Sometimes it can be really, we really feel like we need to continue without any pauses. So this is the assignment that I give my students, is like, tell me a story for 30 seconds. And I'm gonna demonstrate it right now. I'm gonna engage in this belly breath, this sending my energy down, relaxing the low belly muscles in the middle of my phrases. So I'm fully fueled, and I'm taking another one before I get to the end of my breath, and I'm desperate. And it might feel awkward in between those pauses, but you get the feeling of being fully prepared and fully fueled, and giving yourself the release that you need. You're like pulling back the bow to release an arrow. You can't shoot an arrow if you don't hold back the bow. So this is the releasing of the abdominal muscles. So when they do engage, they have somewhere to go, because if they start engaged, if they start really tight and held in, they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any power behind them. So that's my first assignment to you guys. When you're speaking, even, relax those low belly muscles. Practice your belly breathing. And it's not just your low belly too. It's a 3D kind of a breath. So your sides and your low back, nice and easy. Just chill. Release on your inhale. Release on your exhale. Okay, have fun with that. I'm here if you have any questions, as always. I'm about to put up a link for the Vocal Magic waitlist because the doors are now closed for this cohort. However, if you're interested, if you know anybody that's interested, send them on over. It's not up at no, wait, it is in the link in the bio. It's my first link on there. So yeah, get on the wait list for next time. I can't tell you exactly when it will be, but it'll probably be sooner than 6 months, I'm guessing. So hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks, Monarch, for being here. So nice to see you again. And I'll see you very soon.